Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. And the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Jumping right into it. So, last time we talked about the NBA's bubble plan for Orlando. Trying to take 22 teams down there and really finish out the rest of the season and try to crown a champion after having a 3-month layoff. Now, I told you last time there was going to be some people who came out and didn't necessarily want to be a part of it, and they've already given them options for outs. Now, we talked about the big one, obviously, was Kyrie Irving and his vocal nature speaking out against returning, and a lot of players joined him. Lou Williams is a guy who spoke out. Dwight Howard was another guy who spoke out. Avery Bradley. And now we've actually seen a couple of guys opt out of going back. Now, their situations are a little bit unique, both of them, but I think it is kind of telling in that what we talked about last time, that you can't really judge what Kyrie's saying simply off of him because he is the vice president. He doesn't speak up for a lot of guys under him. And again, there were rumors that those same concerns were brought up to Chris Paul and went unheeded because Chris Paul was trying to appease the banana boat bros. So, the two players who are opting out, Dallas Bertans of the Washington Wizards and Trevor Ariza of the Houston Rockets. Now, I'm sorry, Portland Trailblazers for Trevor Ariza, not Houston Rockets. Wow. But Dallas Bertans averaging 15, 4, and 1 this season with Washington. It's almost doubling his output from his last couple of years. His first substantial minutes, really actually not, that's not even true. He had 21 minutes last year. He's got 29 this year. He's at .598 effective field goal percentage. He's really playing well off the bench. He's only started, I think, 4 games or whatnot. And his reason for opting out is he's going to get paid. It's a very weak free agent class, but he's one of the few unrestricted guys who's still young and has, people will suspect, room to grow still. And he's already given you really solid output. Again, he's coming off the bench, and there's a lot to like about his game. Again, you're getting 15 and 4 there, and you're getting that extra almost 2 assists per game. Now, he's shooting from the floor 43, 42 from 3, and 85 from the line. So he's really giving you some all-around production. And again, in a very thin free agent class, somebody's going to give this man a lot of money. And I don't blame him for not wanting to go back out there on a Washington Wizards team that doesn't really have a chance to try to do anything. And risk injuring himself when he can go out there and get paid. That's one of the things that Donovan Mitchell actually was talking about and encouraging players to go out and get insurance. Bertans just said, nah, you know what, I'm not even going to go and play. Can't say I blame him, and I don't think there's going to be the end that we see of players opting out. And I think it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to get necessarily bare names, but I think we're going to see a lot more than people might have suspected from the beginning. Now, the other one is Trevor Ariza, and he was traded midseason from the Sacramento Kings over to the Portland Trailblazers. Only played 21 games, but in those 21 games, he's averaged 11 points, 4 boards, and 2 assists. He's also shooting 49% from the floor, 40% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line. 59%, almost 60% effective field goal percentage. Now, those are really good numbers for Ariza. Best numbers he's put up in quite some time. And he's a guy that, was kind of stuck there in Sacramento in that weird kind of hoarding of veterans that they had, veteran front court players. He's opting out because he has a custody battle going on with the mother of his child, and instead of going down there for Orlando and risk losing the ability to spend time with the child, he's opting to spend that time with his child. So can't fault either one of these guys. These are 2 very different reasons, 2 guys in very different positions in their careers, but that's exactly the point. I think when a lot of people are talking about returning or the NBA returning and sports returning in general, they are really only thinking of it from what you have to do for the players. But there's also their families and the families of the staff and all those things that you have to take into account as well. So I think that when you look at it that way, it becomes a little bit easier to kind of understand why there would be some trepidation from players, and why there has been so much trepidation from players in as far as returning right now. It doesn't seem like it's getting any easier. Now, we are moving closer towards dates that they put forth, and Adam Silver says that the league is still resolute. But again, I just don't think this will be the last that we hear of players necessarily having questions about going and even going so far as to opt out. Now, who would be the next? That's anybody's guess. But again, I just want to point out, like last time we talked about, everybody was piling on Kyrie, but clearly this is more than just a Kyrie Irving problem. That's the league is going to be facing right now, and they have some things they're going to have to do to try to appease people and the players and try to make them feel better about this. Again, I said it already. No matter who you put out there, this season's going to have an asterisk by it. No matter what champion, no matter who ends up ultimately playing, because of the layoff and the circumstances around it, there's just no way you can say this is like any other year. Now, some might argue it's harder, whatever. That still makes it different, and that makes it an outlier, and that means it has an asterisk by it. Now, what that means going forward, who knows? But there's just no way around it being a different type of season if they do come back at all. And again, I just think it's not surprising to see that you see these guys coming out now saying, "Hey, yeah, nah." I mean, it's pretty not cut and dry, but again, it's pretty easy to understand if you actually think about it outside of just as a person who has to go play basketball. They have other decisions that they have to go make. There's other things in life. Secluding yourself for however much time just doesn't make sense. These are things that they don't necessarily have to do when they're playing a regular season, right? You could say, well, they would be playing anyway. They'd be on the road anyway, but they'd be free to do whatever they had to do otherwise, and that's the difference here. So, yeah, a long way from being done, but we're drawing ever closer to those supposed dates that they were putting forth. So we'll see how that all wraps up. The sports are just they're fighting right now to come back, and it seems like just every time there's a step forward, there's two steps back, and I mean that's just the way it's been going. So I mean that's 2020 in a nutshell, though, isn't it? We talked last time about one of those methods that they were going to try to use to make players feel better in the Oura ring, and I really am still not sure if I'm saying it right, but I'm going to call it the Oura ring. Maybe it's Aura, wow, Oura ring, whatever, that's what we're going to call it. And it got me thinking. I promised last time that I would bring back my top 5 list of before we get back to the realness of non-basketball championship rings, right? Because I thought about it like this is a ring that can detect COVID-19 from 6 feet away, or no, maintain distance of 6 feet, can detect it 9 days early or something like that, and 99% accurate according to the company. No way that thing can fail, right? Well, they're still pushing it, and they're still talking about outfitting the players, and it seems to be growing steamward. Now it's like a thing where they're just giving it to all the players, these $300 rings. So I put together my list of top 5, and before we switch gears to the NFL, I will drop my top 5 non-basketball rings in recent lore. Anyway, but before we get to that, we do have to wrap up some more basketball news talking about the Chicago Bulls. And, there was conversation. We talked about that here, actually. They are holding off on firing Jim Boylen because of the perception of how they handle coaches. Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, is also the president of the NBA Coaches Association. And so rumor has it that he has been telling coaches to avoid the Bulls. Now, we already knew about their issues with drawing players in, but if you got somebody on the coach's side who's also doing that, and I mean actively telling coaches to avoid this staff, then that's a problem. Now, their answer to this, their fix for this has been to hold on to Jim Boylen through all the uncertainty that is the season until they have a resolution. And while I can see where they're coming from, my argument is that is completely backwards and it's counterproductive. Now, it's really twofold. Now, first of all, you have guys who you are supposedly targeting being interviewed. The New York Knicks have rumored to be talking to Ime Udoka, others, and Jason Kidd. Now, Ime Udoka is the name that we need to focus on here because he was recently associated with the Bulls just last week. Just last episode, we talked about this. But now he's being interviewed with the Knicks. Now, the Knicks are not the one that you have to be using as a measuring stick. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I am saying that you can't sit on your hands while possibly the candidate that you like gets snatched up, right? You've already put it out there that there's names that are being linked. Now, I'm not saying how this got out, but it got out. And usually when it happens, that means that the front office has some kind of idea about it. So let's not act like we don't know So you got names that you are interested in going out there and being wooed possibly by other franchises. Now, Jason Kidd is another name that's been whispered about. There haven't been strong connections to the Bulls, but that's another one that's out there. Now, he's with the Lakers right now, and he's been granted permission to interview with the Knicks. But it's just these are just what I'm saying is that if you sit around too long, you are now pursuing. You're not the one who is kind of in control of your own situation. I think that's kind of a hurtful thing. Now, and that brings me to my larger point. It hurts their standing in two ways. First of all, it looks very indecisive. You've come in and you've kind of known what the direction you want to put, and you keep saying now that you want to have a little bit of time to see things and see how they interact and talk to people and look at film and interact with each other. But you're not going to get any games because the Bulls aren't going to play. Like, at this point, once you know that you're not having a season anymore, right? I'm not sure what you're waiting on. You look indecisive, and it undercuts your other moves. You came in so gung-ho and cleaned house and like almost top to bottom, just about, except for the bottom of the rung here, and that would be Jim Boylan and the coach, as the head coach. You just wonder, why is it that, you hold on? Because, again, when you do this, it makes you wonder, okay, well, is Arturas Karnisovas really in charge, as the front office says he is? Because all we've heard about this is that they were pretty much sure that they were going to get rid of him between he and Mark Eversley, but that the top guys, Jerry Reinsdorf, Michael Reinsdorf, like him. That's an issue, because if he's only around because the Reinsdorfs like him, then there's no difference between this front office in Karnisovas and Eversley than there was between Foreman and Paxson, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as many Bulls fans are concerned. So you got to figure this out. I think at one point it's an admirable thing, but also it also like you're risking you're pursuing a better image at the risk of actually improving your basketball team, and that's a bad way to go about it too. Improve your basketball team. The image will come after you start making smart moves to get your team better. Stop worrying about that, and that's the problem. If it's a PR thing, that's not a good look. I get it. You don't want to fire anybody by a holiday like you've been doing. There's no holiday right now. Tomorrow's the perfect day, right? Just go ahead and bust that move. Otherwise, like I said, this is so counterproductive right now. You're not only losing ground to other franchises, but again, you are undercutting your own message that you've sent out since you've gotten the front office in place. And so I think that if you're gonna make a move, make it now and quit stalling. Now, before we switch gears, as promised, I am going to unveil my top 5. Oh my goodness, non-basketball championship, non-sports championship rings throughout history. And these are just rings that in the lore, as it were, right? So let's just get right into it. Number 5 has to be the Wonder Twins. Probably aging myself a little bit as it's only reruns. I'm not gonna lie, my knowledge is not the deepest on this, but I know who they are. Zan and Jane and the Wonder Twins, and they had 2 rings. These are rings because this is in the spirit of the Aura ring that they are pushing on NBA players to go down into the Orlando bubble. So number 5 is the Wonder Twins. Yeah, listen. The weakness here about this ring is that you can't. They have to be together, and the one turns into any form of water. The Zan turns into any form of water, and Jane turns into any animal. Weak. The animal parts, the water part's weak. It was like a bucket of water, like a sheet of ice. It was always something stupid, right? And then the obvious weaknesses, if they're not together, then they really can't do much. Number 4 on the Aura top 5 non-championship rings in history. Number 4 has to be the Planeteers, Captain Planet and Planeteers. Now these are powerful. Hey, look, you got all the 5 elements, right? Earth, wind, water, fire, and then you got heart, right? Because you didn't even know that was an element, but that's what that one was. And they brought out some dude who was running around in a crop top and some underwear. So listen, man, the early 90s was a weird time for superheroes. They were going through some things, right? He had green hair and he was blue. Captain Planet, when you look back at it, Captain Planet was like all over the place with what was happening. But that's the number 4 ring. And now, these are, like I said, very strong. But the thing is, if you got them dirty, they kind of lost a lot of effect. And even Captain Planet, if you got him dirty, he lost a lot of his effect on this too. So that's a pretty bad weakness to have, just some dirt. I mean, he could wash it off and he'd be fine again, but like dirt, like that's everywhere. You gotta be careful. Number 3, on the Aura top 5 non-championship rings in history has to be the One Ring. Now, the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings series. Now, you have to forgive me because I'm not very much into the Lord of the Rings saga, so anybody that wants to correct me, feel free. But the power of the ring is to control others. Now, I remember it having the power of invisibility, whatever, but it can control others. And the thing about it is, you can control. It's called the One Ring, but there's other rings, and you can control others who have the rings and will. So you're controlling people, right? Or you're out here controlling people's wills at your behest and whatnot. The big drawback that I saw is that it makes you evil. You're already controlling people's wills, so I'm guessing you have a little bit there anyway. But like, damn, you don't need any help, right? So evil's probably, that's why I can't get any higher than 3 for me. So silly. Okay, and then number 2, I cheated because I'm actually putting in the Aura ring. Now, if it does what they're saying that it does, that's great. $300 is expensive, but if it's out here detecting your distance and your symptoms and like 9 days in advance and all that is terrific, because right now COVID has killed everything, and I am ready for it to be gone. So look, if there's a solution to finding out how to test it or how to minimize its effect, that's terrific. So if this ring can do all it says, I feel right now that it's ahead of all of these rings, because it's keeping you healthy, Planeteers, right? I don't know about the changing forms, but that's kind of weak anyway, because you don't need anybody else to wear it, and it's been used already. So that's the Wonder Twins. They're gone. Doesn't turn you evil. That's the one. That's the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. So yeah, right now, now this is ridiculous. The number 1 ring of all time is the Green Lantern ring, the power ring for the Green Lantern Corps. If you're not familiar, Hal Jordan, James Stewart, I can't remember his name, and then you got they had the young guy as well, Zach Rayner, I believe his name was, or what was his name? This is gonna haunt me now. Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern. Now, I know you're probably thinking, if you're noob, this has gone so off the rails. If you're a noob, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, but Green Lantern can be stopped by yellow. Au contraire, my friend, they got rid of that. That's not even a thing anymore. Now it's all willpower. So now, no matter how much yellow you got, as long as I feel like it, it's over. So Green Lantern wins the top 5, the Aura top 5 non-championship rings in history. That's going to do it for this segment of Triple Zeros. When we come back, we're going to switch gears talking about the NFL. Brett Favre is out here talking a little bit crazy. Jamal Adams is talking a little bit crazy. And Dak Prescott's talking about show him the money. He's talking about Cuba Gooding Jr. So stick around. Triple Zeros, BRB. Triple Zeros and switching to the NFL. So Brett Favre was talking with TMZ and decided to say some crazy stuff. He likened Colin Kaepernick to Patrick Tillman. If you remember, Patrick Tillman was killed by friendly fire on tour in the Middle East, decided to give up his football career and serves the country. Colin Kaepernick is an activist for social justice here in the United States. Now, I am not going to sit here and denigrate anybody's contribution. That's not what's about to happen. But what I will say is Brett Favre is tripping. listen, I love Cap. Love what Cap's doing. Love the stuff that he's done off the field more than anything that they could ever talk about him on. I don't care about that. That's fine. I think what he's done off the field has been much more. And I'm not talking about whatever. I think what Cap's done off the field is great. Now, what I won't say is that he went out and served in the military and gave up his career to die for. I'm not saying that it's any of this. I'm just saying it's not the same thing. He didn't die. So, like, yes, and to be fair, this has been, I don't want to say taken out of context, but it's probably been run with a little bit harder than it needs to be, because Favre has now backtracked and saying, because what he said was that the only person that he can think of for Cap, because he said Cap was very brave, a young player, no matter what the color, giving up his career at the time and to pursue something that he thought was of greater good, and that the only person he could think of similar was Pat Tillman, and how Pat gave up his career and went to go fight become a Ranger, and ultimately sacrifice his life. Now, obviously, there's a big difference between the two of them because, again, one perished and was serving in the military when it happened. Now, what I won't say again is I'm not down at anybody, but the point of the matter is that's just not the same, right? You don't have to dislike either one to say that it's not the same. That's just a ridiculous comparison to make. Now, Favre himself was saying he wasn't trying to directly compare them, but more saying somebody giving up their career to go pursue a greater cause. And in that regard, he's right. And he ended up by saying he thinks that both of them will be regarded as heroes, and that's a fair assessment. Like I said, though, I think that the beginning, the way he started off was kind of one of those, like, I'm sorry, what? You have to kind of double take because it just didn't make much sense. You've also seen a renewed call for Kaepernick to get another job, but that's the other part that Favre was talking about was saying that he thinks that since he hasn't been hit in a couple of years, Kaepernick, that there's no reason to believe that he's lost a step, and that he's a very dynamic quarterback and should be given the opportunity to. But all that people are focusing on right now is that is that Cap is like Tillman line, and that's again in the moment and even after the moment, it's definitely one of those things. Kind of like I don't know, but it's in essence what he's saying is not far off, in that he thinks that history will look at both of them as heroes. Now, I just don't think it's a good comparison, because anytime you try to put somebody next to the military, it's just not going to look. It's not going to hold up. It's just not. It won't. They just won't. And I don't think it's fair more than anything, because it's definitely significant in a different way, and I can't say it's any less. I just can say it's not the same. So, yeah, it was a funny one. Brett Favre, Brett Favre out here trying to be woke, and it ended up being a joke. It's funny. In other NFL news, though, Dak Prescott signed his franchise tender 1 year, $34 million. And he did so, he announced it by a IG picture of him in a 10-gallon. I know it's the Cowboys, and I know he was trying to signify that he is back and everything like that, but I mean, come on, man. This it's a very sus photo. Like, he is the sixth member of the Village People. I'm not sure what the total count is currently, but he is the Village People plus one. Listen, not a great photo. It's funny. It's funny though, and to be honest, I'm not sure who thought that Dak wouldn't be playing for Dallas this year. I've been talking about it all offseason that if they weren't going to get him in, I know exactly where he could end up. And if they don't get the long-term deal done, I'm going to be right back here talking about it again. But if you didn't think that he was going to play this year for the Cowboys, you're tripping, because that's not the kind of player that he is. And I don't think that you've seen anything from him to suggest that he would be in a position, or he would put himself in a position to be placed above the team in any way, shape, or form. So he's a very team first player, and so I'm not surprised at all that he signed. I am surprised, however, at the choice of picture that he made, because son, no, just not a good look. And then in related Cowboys news, related Cowboys news. There we go. Related Cowboys news. Jamal Adams was spotted in a Dallas area by a fan, and the fan asked him flat out, "Hey, Jamal, you coming to Dallas?" And he said flat out, "I'm trying, bro." Now, if you were here last time, I had a whole segment about Dallas need to go ahead and go get him. It started off as a segment about what teams that he listed, and I think he just listed them to try to sneak Dallas in there because that was the call. They flirted about getting him last year. They need to go ahead and do it. He's flat out telling you now, I'm not sure where the tampering and all that kind of stuff comes into play. I don't really care about that. Fact of the matter is this makes too much sense, which means it probably won't happen, but it needs to happen, and I'm not sure exactly what more it is that Dallas needs to see. Now, we can say that like I said, that they don't have a need for it necessarily, but that's a different kind of player. Sneak attack, though, and I'm bringing this back on home, the Bears need to go ahead and make that move, and what I would do, and you could talk about the cap space they're at. I think the Bears have $10 million right now, and he's at about $8 million. He's going to want $15 million for an extension. You know how Ryan Pace is with moving money around. That's one thing that you have to give him credit for. If they can find some way to pair Jamal Adams and Eddie Jackson, the Bears would have a tandem at safety that I don't think you would see be surpassed, maybe even rivaled around the NFL. A tandem that's rivaling those two, that's high quality. There's some good pairs out there. That's not to say that there aren't. But Jamal Adams next to Eddie Jackson is something nasty. Now, where am I willing to go for him? I would, and people are going to probably scoff at this because of the recent history, but I'm giving up a second-round pick for him. No worries. For Jamal Adams, yeah, that's a guy who I wanted the Bears to pick initially in the 2017 draft. My whole plan for this, because I called this draft actually, but my whole plan for him was for the Bears to draft Jamal Adams and then come back in the first round and pick up Deshaun Watson. Obviously, it never played out that way, but that was what I wanted to happen, and I felt like Adams would have been a very good, what he is, and you have people who talk about he's not a great player, and it's funny the mixed commentary you get on certain players on certain teams. But I think Adams is a very complete safety. He's definitely better suited for it. He's not just a box safety, but he's better suited for the box. And I think next to Eddie Jackson, they'd be a great one too, because they can both do enough of the other's role to vary it up in coverage and stuff, and that'd be quite dangerous tandem for a guy like Chuck Pagano to work with. Now, that being said, I think the top I'm going is a second round pick. I'm not giving him a first. He clearly wants out. Now they weren't on the list, but he doesn't get to control where he goes. And if I'm the Jets, I'm probably not gonna. He's got 2 years. You don't have to trade him at all. But if I'm trading him, they're gonna trade him to the best offer. But if I'm the Bears, I'm gonna shoot a second round pick out there. See what a second round pick and Tariq Cohen. Why not? I would give him Tariq Cohen in a second round. Oh, that's yeah. I would offer that. They probably turned it down, but I'm offering that. I don't think Cohen will ever get the usage that he was having when he first broke onto the scene here. And I also don't think that the second round pick for Jamal Adams is a bad move. Look, they gave up they heaven and earth to bring in Khalil Mack, You can solidify your secondary. And you know what? I saw some suggestions for moving Kyle Fuller even. So I don't want to hear it that I'm talking crazy. So I would try to do something along those lines, and then you probably have to cut Patterson to make room for the extension. But now you got cap space, you've gotten your safety tandem. You, in my scenario, you still have your cornerback, and you got your corner of the future there in Jalen Johnson. That secondary is ridiculous, and to match the front seven. So I don't know if the Bears are in the market. And there's another guy on offense that I think they should be trying to pursue too. And Devontae Freeman. I'd probably dig into him a little bit more later on in the week. But I think that at this point, if they can get him, because he's supposedly holding out and ready to sit out for a year, I would float him a mid-range contract to see, 1 year mid-range deal to see if he's interested, because this backfield needs a spark. So I don't see why the Bears wouldn't be interested in adding a guy like Devontae Freeman to this backfield. Again, one that needs a spark. Now, you could argue that if they're not going to use Cohen, then they're not going to use Freeman properly. But I saw a lot of complaints about David Montgomery. I am just bad with names on this one. David Montgomery that I had from last year about him dancing, not being decisive enough when attacking the hole, and trying to do too much once he got there. Too much, like I said, dancing. Freeman would be a guy who's more decisive. He's small, but he's compact and he can run between the tackles. I think he would offer them, if he's willing to take it, a cheap, prove-it deal. Come in and show that he's still got some pop to him. He's a very talented back, but injuries kind of got the better of him the past couple of years. And if he's willing to, he just signed that extension, remember, before Atlanta cut him. That would be a guy that I would be interested in them adding if possible. So Jamal Adams in trade and Devontae Freeman are the guys, and maybe I'll write something about that. I don't know. Haven't decided on it yet. But yeah, the Jamal Adams one, that's Dear Ryan Pace. I don't know if you know, but I did that for the Khalil Mack, and it came true, and I've been doing it ever since. Nothing else has come true. Not a thing has come true for this since then, but that one did, and so therefore I will be doing it for every major deal that I want to see happen, and this one definitely qualifies for that. Yeah, Jamal Adams and Ed Jackson needs to happen. Dear Ryan Pace. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Thank you for joining me. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website is clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Read the stuff, man. PippinAintEasy.com for the basketball. That's Bulls coverage. Last Word on Pro Football for the Bears coverage. And then clockersports.com for the NBA, NFL talk, and all the other great content that we got going on over there. Until the very next time, though, I think you already know what it is, man. That's the horns.